Welcome to the new up structure. This place might not look important at first. Just a narrow stretch of water, ships moving through it every day.
Right now, there is one place on Earth where a single disruption could quietly slow down the internet for millions of people.
And it sits right here, in one of the most sensitive conflict zones on the planet. And when something changes here, it doesn't stay local.
And it sits in the middle of one of the most sensitive conflict zones in the world.
Most people think of the internet as something abstract, something you open on a screen, scroll through, and then move on.
Most people think of the internet as something abstract, something you simply access through a screen. But in reality, it depends on a physical system that stretches across oceans, connects continents, and passes through a small number of critical locations. One of those locations is the Strait of Hormuz.
Every day, massive oil tankers move through here, tightly controlled, constantly monitored.
A narrow passage better known for oil tankers and geopolitical tension.
Most people see the ships above, but right beneath them, something else is moving.
Than for the digital infrastructure it quietly supports every second. For decades, the Strait of Hormuz has been one of the most important choke points on the planet. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply moves through this corridor every single day, making it essential not just for regional economies but for global stability. Any disruption here has immediate consequences, from rising fuel prices to financial market volatility.
When something slows down here, it doesn't stay here, and the effects can show up almost instantly.
But beneath that visible layer of energy transport lies something far less obvious and just as critical. Running along the seabed are fiber optic cables that carry enormous volumes of global data, connecting Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. These cables do not just support communication, they carry financial transactions, cloud services, military coordination, and the everyday digital activity of millions of people. At the same time, tensions between Iran and the United States have intensified, turning this already fragile region into a highly militarized zone. Naval forces, surveillance systems, and strategic positioning have made the strait a focal point of global attention.
In this context, a warning from Iran's Revolutionary Guard has drawn global attention.
In that context, statements from Iran's Revolutionary Guard have added a new layer of concern.
Recently, that focus has shifted, not just to ships or oil routes, but to the cables running beneath them.
Beyond threats related to oil shipments or military confrontation, they have signaled the possibility of targeting undersea infrastructure as a way to apply pressure. This is not a random escalation. It reflects a shift in how modern conflicts are understood, where control over physical networks can translate directly into influence over the digital world. The risk here is not just that something breaks, it is how the system responds when it is pushed beyond what it was designed to handle. Most people expect failure to look sudden and obvious, but large-scale systems rarely collapse that way. Instead, they begin to drift.
It doesn't break, it shifts. Slowly, almost invisibly, the system begins to drift.
Performance changes in ways that are subtle at first and easy to dismiss.
At first, it's easy to ignore, a slight delay. A moment out of sync, nothing that feels like a failure. A video takes slightly longer to load. Nothing dramatic. Just enough, to notice.
A video takes slightly longer to load. A banking transaction pauses for a moment before completing. A call feels just a bit out of sync. These are not dramatic failures, and that is exactly why they are dangerous. When they happen in isolation, they seem insignificant, but when they occur across multiple regions at the same time, they point to a deeper imbalance. The internet was built around patterns of human behavior. Traffic would rise and fall in predictable cycles.
Systems like this were never meant to run at full pressure all the time. They were designed to peak and then recover. That rhythm is what keeps everything stable.
With peak hours followed by quieter periods that allowed systems to recover. That rhythm made it possible to design networks that could handle bursts of activity without being under constant strain.
Systems like this are built to handle spikes. Traffic surges, activity increases, and then it settles back into balance.
But the system was never meant to operate under continuous pressure at a global scale. When stress becomes persistent instead of temporary, small inefficiencies start to compound. Data routes shift, latency increases, and synchronization across systems becomes harder to maintain. If critical cables in a region like the Strait of Hormuz were damaged or disrupted, the impact would not be a complete blackout. Data would be rerouted through alternative paths, but those paths already carry their own load. As traffic concentrates into fewer channels, delays begin to spread.
It doesn't stay where it starts. A small disruption here can spread outward, slowing everything that depends on it.
What starts as a localized issue can expand into a broader slowdown, affecting services far beyond the original point of disruption. The internet does not simply turn off. It becomes less reliable, less consistent, and harder to predict. That is what makes this kind of threat fundamentally different. It is not about destroying the system outright. It is about introducing instability into something that depends on precision and balance.
At this scale, the system looks massive, but it actually depends on a very small number of physical points, places most people never think about.
A small number of physical weak points support a vast digital network, and when those points are under pressure,
And when those points come under pressure, everything starts to concentrate here. And that's where the system becomes vulnerable.
the effects ripple outward in ways that are difficult to trace in real time. The system continues to function, but it no longer behaves the way it should. And this is not just a regional issue. The cables that pass through or near the Strait of Hormuz are part of a larger network that supports global connectivity. Disruptions in one area can influence data flow across continents, affecting businesses, governments, and individuals who are completely unaware of the underlying cause. The distance between a physical event and a digital consequence has never been shorter, and that connection is often invisible to the people who rely on it every day.
What makes this more complex is that the internet isn't something separate anymore.
What makes this even more complex is that the internet has become so deeply integrated into daily life that its stability is taken for granted.
Most of the time, we don't even think about it. It just works. And because of that, we assume it always will.
We expect instant access, seamless communication, and uninterrupted services, but those expectations rest on infrastructure that is both finite and vulnerable. The more dependent we become on these systems, the more sensitive they are to disruptions in places most people never think about.
The more we rely on these systems, the more sensitive they become to disruptions happening in places most people never even see.
The situation in the Strait of Hormuz highlights a broader reality. The internet is not an abstract cloud that exists independently of the physical world. It is a network shaped by geography, politics, and infrastructure, and it is influenced by the same forces that affect energy, trade, and security. When tensions rise in a critical region,
When tensions rise in a region like this, everything moving through it becomes more constrained and far more sensitive to disruption.
the impact is not limited to what can be seen on the surface. It extends into the digital systems that connect economies and societies at a global scale. If you step back and look at the bigger picture, this is not just about one potential event or one location. It is about understanding how interconnected the world has become and how fragile that interconnectedness can be under pressure.
And this is where it becomes fragile, not because it breaks, but because everything is connected and everything is under pressure at the same time.
The systems we rely on are designed for efficiency and scale, but they are not immune to disruption, especially when that disruption targets the points where everything converges. The next time something online feels slightly off,
The next time something online feels slightly off, just a little slower than usual, that might not be random.
it might not be a random glitch or a problem with your device.
It might not be a glitch, and it might not be your device. What you're seeing could be coming from somewhere much deeper in the system.
It could be a reflection of a much larger system adjusting to pressure somewhere far away. And as these pressures continue to build, the question is not whether the internet will fail, but how it will behave as it approaches its limits. If this system starts to break, you won't see it happen all at once. You'll feel it, slowly, in the things you rely on every day. And that's exactly why understanding it matters.
And that's exactly why understanding it matters.
So if you want to see what really happens when the world's hidden infrastructure is pushed to its limits,
So if you want to see what really happens when this system is pushed to its limits, you have to look beyond a single point.
Subscribe now, because this is not just about one region or one conflict. It's about the system you use every single day and what happens when it starts to slip.
This is the new Up Structure. Subscribe and see you in the next system.